Hi there. My name is Tristan Seikel, and I'm one of the co hosts for the King County Recovery Conversations, as well as the Director of Advocacy and Programs for the Washington Recovery Alliance. You're listening to King County Recovery Conversations, a place to celebrate recovery and help break the stigma of addiction and mental health. Today, I am joined by Amari Davis, who currently hosts Black, Trans, and Queer, a peer support group for trans and queer identified Black folks, founded by Therapy Fund Foundation. So, just to get us started, we're so grateful to have you join us today, Amari. To get us started, can you share with us your recovery story and what led to you to your work in the behavioral health field?
Yeah, yeah, I'm Amari. My pronouns are they, them. I like to make a brief introduction about myself. Yes, I'm a Black, trans, and queer person who lies on the intersections of substance abuse and use, is in recovery, also has been, um, frequently faces job, financial, and housing insecurity. And so a lot of what led me into the work that I do before I actually even started using was like a lot of the history that I have in my life of like trauma, abuse, violence, um, both racial and also domestic, like within my own home. And so a little over 3 years ago, January 2020, it's going to be 4 years now, actually. I decided to stop drinking and using hard drugs, and kind of packed up all my stuff from where I was. I was a frequent traveler, and went into sober living and kind of started my recovery journey that way. And so, yeah, I guess what really drew me into like behavioral and also just like recovery health is just yeah, being in the intersections of somebody who exists on like a spectrum of neurodivergence, someone who experiences mental health challenges, and someone who also consistently experiences racial trauma, behavioral patterns, and just behavior in general, and how I show up is really important to me. First of all, because I have to spend a lot of time masking as a Black queer trans person, and also because I just noticed that when you live in certain realms of existing within like capitalism and in the system, your behavior patterns are different and the ways that you show up are different, and they're also equated to different things. And so later on, we talk about like culture and stuff, and so I'll tie it into that. But it just felt really important to me to be help be a representation for people that are like me and unlike me, that face, lie within all of those intersections of, racial trauma and harm, childhood trauma, harm, and then just all the other intersections of trying to recover from life. It feels important to me to be representation or representative in that community.
Thank you, Amari, so much for being here and sharing a little bit more about your story and what led to your work in the behavioral health field. Absolutely, we all have so many different spectrum of differences that some of which are visible, some of which are invisible, and so it's really important, I think, to analyze that intersection, right, and see how our experiences may differ or maybe could be extra resiliences, right, to be investigated there as well. So we'll definitely dive into a little bit more of that here in a minute. Um, so, if you could tell us a little bit more about the program you work for, and in specific, what services are offered and how does it work?
So currently, am I work with the Therapy Fund Foundation, which is a Black led organization that offers free therapeutic and peer services to Black folks. It centers on racial harm, trauma, capitalism, and how we have to and are forced to show up as Black folks, and how we move through recovery in that way. And so the group Black Trans and Queer is currently funded by the Therapy Fund Foundation, or Therapy Foundation Fund, and also am able to offer one-on-one peer services through them to Black folks, although we don't turn anybody away, like, as peers, we never turn anybody away, but the organization is, specifically organized towards, aiding, supporting Black folks in their recovery processes. I also otherwise offer like my own personal services. I'm like in between trying to like kind of like this is a learning experience working with the Therapy Foundation because with the Therapy Fund Foundation because yeah, I kind of get to see what it's like to be like contracted and kind of do my own work. So yeah, I also like to offer my services to just cutie BIPOC people in general, like on the side as at a sliding fee scale. I haven't yet like announced or like solidified that as like a business. And I also think that peer work, though risen through a capitalist lens, is actually a community based program. And so I do believe that I can use what I've learned in my certifications to help community and help access community that otherwise might not have resource to it. So,
That's awesome. I mean, that's incredible work that y'all are doing over there. And definitely, if anybody's interested in pursuing your services, they can get connected to you through the Black Trans and Queer Support Group offered at the Therapy Fund Foundation, and you can go there to learn a little bit more about the work that they do as well. Um, Thanks again, Amari. So, what role does culture and identity play in getting into and maintaining behavioral health recovery?
well, you know, as peers, we offer navigating folks through through recovery, through an approach of self efficacy, advocacy, and, being able to represent and care for yourself individually and within your own like support network. But I don't believe personally that you can help an individual without understanding like having an understanding of their cultural background and where they come from, because those all tie into it. And I think my experience as someone who started recovery in 12-step programs and kind of how I view the program as this like can oftentimes, and just like in recovery in general, because of the stigma around folks who use and what we think recovery is as a whole, um, you oftentimes are asked to fit inside of a box, which generally asks you to leave all those parts of you that make you you outside of that box to become an individual like in a group setting where you just are like we're all like on the same page, and that's just like not true. We all have different walks of life and we all have different ways of getting through things. And it's immensely important to understand that we exist under a system that is predicated on the demise, on the extinction, and on the genocide of a very select group of people that um, does umbrella to a larger group of people. So the more we focus on the most marginalized within these groups, Black folks, especially, Indigenous folks, especially, disabled folks, queer folks, trans folks, the more we get to know and understand their struggles and our struggles, we get to understand our struggle as a whole collectively, because none of us are exempt from the system, even though we all experience it differently. And if if I'm expected to understand, I need to have an understanding of myself, right, and where I come from and my background to understand what I need in recovery. Meaning, I need to have an understanding of my trauma. I need to have an understanding of why it affects me. I need to have an understanding of how I operate in the world because of that trauma and how I want to continue to operate in the world after and during and while and as I'm recovering from that trauma. Um, but also, and also, you need to have that same understanding if you want to help me. Otherwise, you're not really supporting me. You're supporting maybe inevitably a vision or an idea of what recovery is or like what a person needs, but you're not really getting to the nitty gritty of what that person is actually needing. And in order to get to that, I believe that you really do need to have an understanding of what that person has gone through and how it affects them individually, and then also like how they're affected, within a system, um, to help them, to be able to support them.